it started with an addiction of coffee, but it became like this addiction with like engaging with the world and becoming like a framework for doing things, getting things done, providing a neutral space because you're not biased.
Conversations matter, especially in a world of constant rush and endless noise, where checking in too often means scrolling through social feeds. Sometimes all it takes is a stubborn kind of curiosity, the kind that pauses, listens, and draws out the stories we overlook, the ones we never think to ask about. This is Living Biography, where we reaffirm our shared human story from one friend to another and beyond, sparked by curiosity and kept alive through conversation. There's an interconnectedness between us and the places we've lived. We shape our communities, and in turn, they shape us. But what is that place that left a lasting impression on the course of our lives? Tushar Dadlani, originally from Pune, India, made his way to the Bay Area as a university student. I knew that life had taken him across the world, from the bustling streets of India to American suburbia and beyond. So when I asked him which place had shaped who he is today, I was surprised by his response. In his story, we see the merging of the micro and the macro, the tangible and the intangible in something so ordinary.
I think there is like a theme in my life, which is not, there's a series of places in some ways that have shaped me in very interesting ways. It's kind of like for me, I feel at home in a new city when I find the coffee shop next to my house that I can just go to and disconnect from reality.
Coffee shops. Many people love their coffee, and they're certainly great places to meet friends or get some work done. But I never thought that they could be so integral to feeling at home. It's something I've just taken for granted. So I wanted to understand why.
When I moved to Mountainview from India, right, it was away from home, away from family. And I was living with 4 other roommates, right? So it almost was like, and in a 2-bed, 2-bath, right? So 5 people in a 2-bed, 2-bath is not great. Like, it's like 5 adults, right? It's not like 5, like 2 kids and 2 adults. It's like 5 full-grown adult men, to make it very specific. So and because the commute was not very, I didn't have a car, and like any suburban America always like you require a car, right? So I kind of accidentally landed at this coffee shop, which was on the bus route. So I could, if my classes were a little later, I'll just stay on the bus route at this coffee shop. And then whenever I need to catch the next bus, I can just get on the bus and go there. And then if the campus shuts down or the building closes early, like I just wanted some humans around me to like do whatever I'm trying to do.
Undergrad is that time when you're trying to find and develop yourself, likely living with multiple roommates and not yet having the resources to do whatever you want. It makes sense that coffee shops became a safe haven for Tushar, a place of solitary reflections while in the presence of a slice of humanity.
And over time, I started like, there was like a poetry, like I ran into people who are doing some like Persian poetry, for example, to like an Android meetup group where people were learning how to program Android phones. And every time, and there would be an open mic on a Monday evening at the same place, right? And I'm like, wow, there's so much diversity of this place, which kind of, it's not just a tech coffee shop where people are like talking about tech and all of that. Even that is happening, but almost like the coffee shop embodied this multitude of people. And then they would support local artists. So local artists would have their art posted, which you could buy from the artist. Like they were not like, they're more a community coffee hub, right?
Tushar continued to explain that, sure, coffee can be pricey, $6 or $7, depending on the place. But to him, half the cost is for the coffee itself, and the other half is for the culture and vibe. It's more than just money in exchange for a caffeinated drink. It's about having a space to work, to linger, to be among a diverse mix of people.
It's a place where everybody is welcome. There's no like gatekeeping on who enters, who doesn't. As long as you buy a beverage, you can, and the cost of the beverage is like starts at like $2 or $3. And whereas restaurants always have this like weird gatekeeping, right? Like there's a price tier. It's a cheap restaurant. Cheap restaurant, you're going for the food. The more expensive restaurant, you're going for the experience. But the kind of people that dine at a Michelin star are very different. Like they're different from the people that. But a coffee shop is kind of this, I feel, melting pot.
Maybe lingering sounds like a negative thing, but for him, it led to these meaningful encounters that nudged the trajectory of his professional life. Once, he happened to sit next to someone pitching an idea to investors, an idea that turned out to be a direct competitor. It made him realize how much he needed to refine his own pitch. Another time, he crossed paths with people from OpenAI, Google, and Tesla, all major researchers in tech. As starstruck as he was, it still felt surprisingly grounded.
Like you read so much about them on the internet. You see so much of like quote unquote celebrity stuff, and you're like, oh, you're just like a normal person. You're not. You're getting coffee from the same place. So you almost feel this like you stop putting people on a pedestal because you and I are drinking the same coffee in a weird. Like theoretically, like there is this idea, right? Like we all use the same iPhone, and even if like so it doesn't matter. Like, but when you actually are seeing that they're at physically, you see them embodied in the same coffee shop or in the same space. It almost is like you get them off that pedestal that you might have been putting in your head. It's like if you're in Hollywood and you see a celebrity going to the same coffee shop as you are, that's fine. But then if you try to go to Ep1 or something like that, it's like you're self-selecting to try to run into celebrities, right? Versus like, oh, like they just go to the mom and pop shop in your neighborhood because just they live there. They happen to live there. They're part of your community.
Billions of people consume coffee around the world, but he drew a distinction between the coffee shops in India and those in America. And it became clear that it was the American coffee shop specifically that held a special place in his heart.
Like you can see how in India, right? For example, like Cafe Coffee Day became this like, after it became very popular, then a new brand kicked in at a higher price point. Once that like diluted it, that brand again became like a second tier brand, now a third. So that hierarchy of branding has almost become like Cafe Coffee Day, like nobody in the upper middle class goes to Cafe Coffee Day anymore. They migrated to barista because it was more selective, right? But people like in India, which is traditionally like a very divided society, that class system now is visible in which coffee shop chain you go to based on your like it's almost like it's become a marker of like division rather than. But in America, because coffee is like so like, but in America it's actually not that way, right? Like the coffee costs $5 at Starbucks and at your bougie coffee shop. It's so there's no financial difference in how things are divided. But in India, it's like you can see that cultural divide.
I began to better understand his perspective. Having grown up witnessing a stark class divide in India, it was the sense of equality he saw in American coffee shops that left a deep impression on him. So I asked him, at this point, is it more an addiction to caffeine or to the feeling of being connected to a community?
I don't know. Why I go there, I don't have a clear answer. It's just like I somehow convince myself to go to a coffee shop every day. To the extent, like I think right now also, right? Like after this call, I plan to go to the coffee shop if possible, right? And sometimes I don't like interacting with people. I run into, because sometimes you end up going to the coffee shop so often, you start running into the regulars, right? And then it's like, people are like, oh, like sometimes you want to strike up a conversation and you're like, no, I'm here to like, it's almost this like, I don't know, it's observation. Like you just observe humanity in this kind of microcosm. You just have to observe. You don't have to judge in a weird kind of way. And you don't have to interact. You're not forced to interact. Like American coffee shops, like people give you your space. Nobody's like chatting you up unless like you initiate something. People like give you your space. I think that's the one, like the person's space is respected and valued. And at the same time, it also, there is opportunity. Like you can choose to engage with the people around because people have come there to engage maybe with a friend, like they're by default in this engagement mindset, right? Or engage with the journal or engage with their book. Like it's just a way, like a lot of people like who stay like for slightly longer than just picking up coffee and going, actually stay there for slightly like because they're come there for some kind of enriching themselves in some form of engagement. It could be a meeting up with a friend, meeting up professionally, meeting up with like they're trying to create some value, I feel like, in that environment. It's almost like that environment almost self-selects for people who are trying to create some value in that moment for themselves.
Again, I've always seen coffee shops as places to meet friends and have meaningful conversations. But Tushar opened my eyes to something deeper. They're spaces for self-reflection, glimpses of diversity, grounds for equality, and ultimately, places where value is created. There's a surprising profundity to coffee shops, huh? But why?
I think for me, it's important. Like it has to be a multi-sensory experience, if that makes sense. Like, because if all my senses are engaged, then I, I guess now that I'm thinking about it, if all my senses are engaged, I'm getting the full human experience. Whereas if I'm on a phone call, like one sense is engaged, but some other senses are disengaged. But going to a coffee shop and actually having coffee, like your taste buds are also engaged, your vision is also engaged, your ears are also engaged, where there is some background noise always in a coffee shop of some kind, either the espresso machine or whatever, right? And then because you physically go there, you can feel the marble or the surface, feel the chair. Like there is, I don't know, like it's just a like you can smell the coffee. Like there is almost, I feel like a coffee shop almost embodies this like multi-sensory experience of life in a weird kind of way, and it provides all of them together. Like there is, because if there is no coffee, then there's no taste element. You eliminate the taste sense, if that makes sense, right? All your entire sensory system gets triggered, or at least gets reasonably activated in the coffee shop. So then you can do whatever else you were there for, because now you're like fully focused in a weird kind of way, like because you're not just thinking from one dimension. It's like a multi-dimensional, and you're not also thinking alone. Because if you have some thoughts in your brain, you can look around and be like, is this like valid for all of these people? Like, or am I just making stuff up, right?
We went from talking about a college town coffee shop to multi-sensory experiences. Honestly, at the start of our conversation, I expected a nostalgic, sepia-toned memory of some old cafe. I didn't expect it to lead here. Coffee shops, for him, are the places that awaken his engagement to himself and the world. So, to wrap things up, I asked him more directly, how did coffee shops shape who he is today?
It started with an addiction of coffee, but it became like this addiction with like engaging with the world and becoming like a framework for doing things, getting things done, providing a neutral space because you're not biased, there are lesser distractions weirdly at a coffee shop because you have other people indirectly watching you, right? Like even though they are not watching, this sense of people are watching me, you can't just like do random stuff that you might do at home, like in your own comfortable space. Like you can go and take a nap, right? Like, but if you're at home, working from home, you can always go and take a nap. So I guess that's how I look at it. It's like one addiction leading to another addiction, like kind of, but I'm like, yeah, as long as it's controlled, the value it provides is way more than all the costs that it comes with.
For Tushar, it wasn't just about coffee. Coffee shops became the daily pauses in his otherwise busy mind, engineering AI systems and building a startup. They were touch points for engaging with the community, for physically and intentionally putting pen to paper, for awakening all his senses and grounding him in reality. And from this home that he returns to within himself, he sets out again and again with a sense of clarity that he isn't drifting about aimlessly, Maybe it is a bit of a caffeine addiction, but it's also the ritual that reminds him he's building technology for the real world, not removed from it, and that first and foremost, he's a drop of coffee in the pot of humankind. Thanks for listening to Living Biography. This show is hosted by Teemyo, dedicated to expanding dialogue and ensuring technology serves humanity, not the other way around. We release new episodes every week, sharing the stories of ordinary people that remind us of our commonalities, not our differences. If you'd like to be a part of these stories, reach out to us at pod@valuebridge.ai for an informal and friendly conversation.